Sometimes you sit with someone you care about, and a quiet thought slips into your mind. If I disappeared, they would probably be fine. Not because they said anything, not because they treated you badly, but because something inside you keeps whispering that you're interchangeable, that someone better could easily take your place. So you try to be helpful, easy to be around, low maintenance. But the strange part is, the more you try not to be a burden, the more invisible you begin to feel. And the question slowly grows in the background. Why do I always feel replaceable? It shows up in small moments. A friend replies late to your message, and your mind quietly prepares for distance. Someone cancels plans, and part of you assumes they just found someone better to spend time with. You rarely say this out loud. Instead, you become the person who doesn't ask for much. You don't complain. You don't push. You don't make things complicated. Because somewhere deep down, there's a belief. If you take up too much space, people might realize they don't actually need you. So you adapt. You listen more than you speak. You support others before mentioning your own problems. You become reliable. But here's the hidden cost. When you constantly make yourself smaller to keep relationships stable, your brain slowly believing something dangerous. Your value depends on how little you need. And over time, this changes how you see every connection in your life, not as something secure, but as something fragile, something that could easily shift without you. But this pattern didn't appear randomly. Your brain isn't broken. It's doing exactly what human brains evolved to do: protect social belonging. From a survival perspective, relationships were never optional. For most of human history, losing your place in the group meant real danger. So the brain developed systems that constantly scanned for signs of rejection. Psychologists call this rejection sensitivity. And when this system becomes highly active, your mind starts detecting possible abandonment even when none exists. Not because you're weak, but because your brain learned early that staying socially safe required careful attention. The problem is, once this pattern forms, your brain keeps running it automatically, even when your relationships are actually stable. Here's the mechanism behind it. Your brain has something like a social alarm system. Neuroscientists have found that the same brain regions involved in physical pain, especially the anterior cingulate cortex, also activate when we experience social rejection. In other words, being excluded literally hurts, so the brain tries to predict rejection before it happens. Think of it like a smoke detector. A well-calibrated one only goes off when there's real smoke, but a hypersensitive one goes off when someone makes toast. When rejection sensitivity develops, your brain becomes that hypersensitive detector. A delayed reply becomes a warning. A small change in tone becomes a signal, and your mind starts asking one quiet question over and over: am I about to be replaced? But this system can be recalibrated, not by forcing confidence, but by changing how your brain interprets connection. The first shift is noticing the prediction. When the thought appears, "they don't really need me," pause and label it, not as truth, but as a prediction your brain is making. In cognitive psychology, this creates cognitive distance. Instead of merging with the thought, you observe it. Example: your friend takes hours to respond. Instead of assuming distance, you simply note, "my brain is predicting rejection right now." That small separation reduces the emotional intensity. The second shift is allowing visible needs. Many people who feel replaceable try to be emotionally frictionless, but paradoxically, relationships deepen through small moments of vulnerability. When you ask for support, your brain receives corrective social feedback. It learns that connection doesn't disappear when you take up space. Example: Instead of saying, "I'm fine," you say, "Today was actually a bit heavy," and the relationship continues normally. That moment teaches your brain something new. The third shift is tracking evidence of consistency. Your brain is biased toward noticing threats, so you need to deliberately collect signals of stability. Psychologists call this evidence-based belief updating. Example, a friend checks in on you. Someone remembered something you said weeks ago. Write these down mentally. Each moment becomes proof that connection isn't as fragile as your brain assumes. The fourth shift is staying present instead of forecasting loss. The mind that feels replaceable lives mostly in the future, predicting abandonment. But relationships only exist in the present moment. Practicing presence through simple awareness of conversation, tone, and shared moments reduces the brain's habit of projecting imagined endings. Example, instead of thinking, "This won't last," you simply notice, "Right now, this person chose to spend time with you, and that moment is real." Over time, these shifts change one important thing: your internal model of relationships. Instead of seeing connection like a fragile seat you might lose, you begin seeing it like a shared space, not something you must constantly earn, but something both people participate in creating. The brain slowly recalibrates. The smoke detector becomes quieter, not because rejection never happens, but because your mind stops assuming it's always about to. And something subtle changes when that happens. You stop trying to prove you deserve your place. You stop shrinking yourself to stay safe. You simply show up, with opinions, with needs, with presence. And the strange thing is, when you stop acting like you're replaceable, people begin experiencing you as someone who isn't. Because relationships don't deepen through perfection, they deepen through presence. And sometimes the quiet shift that changes everything is this: you were never meant to earn your place in every relationship. You were meant to exist in it.